Imagine someone who looks like a prince or princess straight out of a fairy tale, but behind closed doors, they turn into a total nightmare. Sound familiar? Today, we're going behind the curtain of one of the most complex and destructive personality types out there. We're going to talk about the one thing that absolutely terrifies a person who seems to fear nothing at all. I promise that by the end of this video, you'll see toxic relationships in a completely different light, and you'll walk away with a powerful tool to protect your mental health. But first, I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever felt like you were slowly losing your mind in a relationship, even though your partner insisted that you were the problem? Share your story in the comments. Let's see how many of us have been there. Spoiler alert, it's not you, it's them. And it all stems from their biggest, most deeply hidden fear. To understand the nature of this fear, we have to look under the hood of their psyche. The word narcissist has become a bit of a buzzword lately. We often use it to describe people who take too many selfies or only talk about themselves. But clinical narcissism is a much darker, deeper story. Imagine the grand, luxurious facade of a building, but behind it, there's nothing but cold, empty ground. In early childhood, this person's psyche suffered a profound trauma. They weren't able to form a true, authentic self. Instead, they built a false persona, a mask, and they are forced to protect that mask every single day of their lives. All that grandiosity, the arrogance, and the way they belittle others, it doesn't come from a place of self-love. It's a desperate, endless attempt to hide their inner emptiness and a sense of being fundamentally broken. And it's from this very void that their darkest nightmares grow. There's a common myth that narcissists are deeply in love with themselves. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. He's just a self-absorbed egoist. But the truth is, there is a bottomless black hole where their soul should be. This brings us to their greatest fear, the fear of being ordinary. Imagine someone who spends every waking moment pretending to be a superhero, a genius, or a misunderstood visionary. To them, being just like everyone else is synonymous with total annihilation. If you tell a narcissist they're a good specialist or just an average guy, it won't just offend them, it will trigger a state of pure, unadulterated rage. Why? Because their self-esteem has no internal foundation. It's held up entirely by external props. This facade of greatness is their only survival mechanism. Think of a priceless crystal vase perched on the very edge of a table. It looks magnificent, but one clumsy move and it shatters into 1,000 pieces. That is the reality of their fragile psyche. When the world stops feeding them admiration, a narcissist literally starts to suffocate. They are terrified that one day they'll wake up, look in the mirror, and realize they don't stand out from the crowd at all. This fear is what drives them to spin elaborate lies about their achievements, claim talents they don't possess, and ruthlessly belittle the success of others. After all, it's much easier to feel like a giant when you've forced everyone else to their knees. But if you dig even deeper, you'll find their ultimate, paralyzing nightmare. It's the fear of being exposed. Think of the Wizard of Oz. Behind the image of the great and powerful Oz was just a small, frightened man pulling levers behind a curtain. The narcissist is that man. They spend their entire lives crafting an illusion of greatness, perfection, and omnipotence. And more than anything in the world, they are terrified that someone will pull back that curtain, that someone will see who they really are, vulnerable, insecure, and riddled with shame and envy. This is why they are so hypersensitive to criticism. Even a harmless remark like pointing out they forgot to buy bread is perceived as a threat to their perfect image. In response, you get a disproportionate explosion of rage. They don't lash out because you're wrong. They lash out because you've come too close to their secret. To protect the mask, they will resort to anything: lies, manipulation, or sheer cruelty. If they feel you're starting to see right through them, they will do everything in their power to make you look like the crazy one. They will flip the facts upside down just to keep their facade intact. For a narcissist, being exposed is the end of the world. It's the total destruction of the only identity they've ever known. Next on the list of their worst nightmares, and this one follows naturally from the last, is losing control over you. To a narcissist, a relationship isn't a partnership between equals. It's a game where they have to be the puppeteer, and you're the puppet on a string. The moment you start showing any independence, they panic. Imagine pulling a string, only for the puppet to suddenly walk in the opposite direction. To the person holding the strings, that's unthinkable. Whether you're seeing friends without asking, starting a new job, or simply standing your ground, the narcissist feels the floor falling out from under them. Losing control over you means their power was always just an illusion. To get that grip back, they'll resort to the dirtiest tricks in the book. They might suddenly shower you with affection, pick fights over nothing, guilt-trip you, or even threaten to leave. But here's the most important thing to remember, that aggression isn't strength. It's a sign of absolute weakness and desperation. They are terrified that if you realize how strong and independent you actually are, you'll see that you don't need them at all. And once that happens, their fragile house of cards comes crashing down. Let's talk about reputation. For someone with narcissistic personality disorder, public perception is sacred. Their fear of public shame and losing status is practically bottomless. Behind closed doors, they can be cruel tyrants, belittling you, insulting you, and tearing you down. But the moment they step out into the world, they transform into the most charming person in the room, always ready to lend a helping hand. This jarring contrast between the monster at home and the angel in public is enough to make any victim feel like they're losing their mind. Worst of all, because the narcissist presents such a perfect image to the world, no one ever believes the victim. Why do they do this? Because their false self feeds on public admiration. If their reputation is tarnished, if people see who they really are, they lose their primary source of validation. This is why they are terrified you'll tell someone the truth. They will try to isolate you, convincing you that your problems are nobody else's business and that you should never air your dirty laundry. And if things head toward a breakup, they'll be the first to run to your mutual friends to tell them how unstable or toxic you are. They have to strike first to protect their own image. Painting you as the crazy one is their insurance policy. It ensures that if you ever do speak up, the world has already been programmed not to believe a word you say. Now let's debunk another myth. Most people believe that being hated is a narcissist's greatest fear, but in reality, it's quite the opposite. Hate is a powerful emotion, and to a narcissist, any emotion is fuel. In psychology, this is known as narcissistic supply. Their true, bone-chilling fear is being completely and utterly ignored. Think of them like an energy vampire. They don't care if the blood they're drinking is sweet with love or bitter with tears and anger. As long as it's flowing, they're satisfied. When you cry, shout, or try to prove your point, you're feeding them. You're showing them that they still have power over you, that they matter. But the moment you turn cold and indifferent, the moment you stop giving them any reaction at all, they begin to starve. When you stop responding to their provocations and just look right through them, they start to lose it. The silence forces them to face their own inner emptiness, the very thing they spend their whole lives running from. This is exactly why they often try to crawl back after a breakup. sending strange messages or starting petty drama. They are desperate to hook you, to squeeze out just one more drop of your attention. They need to feel that they still exist and that they still have a grip on your life. Let's be real, healthy boundaries are to a narcissist what garlic is to a vampire in an old horror movie. They are absolutely terrified of anyone who knows how to say a firm, unapologetic no. In their warped reality, boundaries aren't limits. They're just challenges waiting to be broken. If you set a basic rule, like asking them not to call you in the middle of the night or refusing to bail them out financially, they take it as a personal attack. Why? Because boundaries prove that you are an actual person with your own rights, not just an extension of their ego. Someone with strong boundaries is inconvenient. They can't be controlled. That's why a narcissist always starts a relationship by testing the waters. It begins with small violations, showing up an hour late or making a disrespectful jab at your expense disguised as a joke. If you stay silent and just swallow it, they know they can push that fence back even further. But if they hit the concrete wall of your self-respect, they lose it. They'll get angry, they'll manipulate, and they'll call you the selfish one. It's ironic, isn't it? A narcissist calling someone selfish just for protecting themselves. They fear your boundaries because that is where the illusion of their total power comes to an end. A person who truly respects themselves will never be a reliable source of supply for them. Have you ever wondered why relationships with people like this always feel so shallow? Even after 10 years together, you might feel like you're sharing a home with a total stranger. That's because narcissists are absolutely terrified of true emotional intimacy. For most of us, intimacy is a gift. It's a chance to let your guard down, show your weaknesses, and be accepted for who you truly are. But for them, vulnerability feels like a death sentence. If they ever truly opened up, you'd see the emptiness and insecurity hiding underneath. So they wear this heavy emotional armor that they never, ever take off. They might mimic closeness or say all the right things like they're reciting lines from a movie, but you'll always feel a certain underlying coldness. The moment the relationship starts getting deep, they panic and pull away. They'll pick a fight over nothing, vanish for a few days, or even betray you. It's all done for one reason: to rebuild the wall between you. They keep you at arm's length, just close enough so you keep feeding them with your attention, but far enough away that you can never look past the mask and see the scared, fragile person hiding inside. Another living nightmare that haunts them every single day is your total independence. And we're not just talking about emotional freedom, we're talking about real-world stability, your finances, your career, and your own place to live. A healthy partner celebrates your growth and success, but to a narcissist, your strength is a direct threat to their very existence. If you have your own money, a solid career, and strong ties to friends, you have the power to pack your bags and leave at any moment. And as we know, for them, losing control is unbearable. This is exactly why they use tactics of gradual isolation and erosion. It often starts subtly. They might kindly suggest you quit your job, saying things like, "Why stress yourself out? I can take care of us both." Then they begin to criticize your friends and family, convincing you that those people don't truly have your best interests at heart. Eventually, you find yourself in a golden cage, completely cut off from the world and entirely dependent on their moods. They fear your independence because they know the truth. They know their behavior is appalling, and they realize that the moment you understand you can thrive without them, you won't spend another second in this psychological hell. To them, your dependency is the only guarantee that you'll stay no matter how much they mistreat you. What about accountability? For a narcissist, admitting fault is pure science fiction. Their fear of taking responsibility is nothing short of pathological. In a healthy relationship, people argue, make up, apologize, and grow from the experience. But in a narcissist's world, it's always the circumstances, the bad weather, the boss, or even the neighbor's dog. It is never them. And most of the time, the one at fault is you. If they snap and scream at you, it's because you provoked them. If they cheat, it's because you weren't giving them enough attention. They use brutal gaslighting to rewrite reality and make you question your own sanity. Why are they so afraid of that simple word, sorry? Because admitting a mistake shatters their image of being a flawless, godlike figure. If they admit they're wrong, their false self begins to crack. Their psyche simply cannot handle the weight of shame, so they rely on projection. They take their own guilt, their shame, and their toxic thoughts and literally shove them onto you. They make you feel guilty for the things they did. This paralyzing fear of being wrong makes it impossible to resolve any conflict, because in their eyes, the problem is always you, never them. We often see these individuals becoming obsessed with their appearance, their youth, and their social standing. This obsession stems from a deep-seated existential dread, the fear of growing old and losing their allure. While most people accept aging as a natural progression into a new stage of life, for a narcissist, it is a catastrophe of epic proportions. To them, beauty, youth, and status are their primary currency, the capital they use to buy the attention and admiration they crave. As their looks begin to fade and their health falters, they realize that capturing new targets and keeping their old ones is becoming harder and harder. They are like a fading star who can no longer sell out arenas. For people like this, a midlife crisis is uniquely destructive. You'll see them undergo endless plastic surgeries, make flashy, over-the-top purchases, or pursue affairs with people young enough to be their own children. It is all a desperate attempt to prove to the world and to themselves that they've still got it. They are terrified of becoming invisible or losing their alpha status. Because once that outer shell is gone, all that's left is an inner void, a hollow core they are terrified to face. Next, let's talk about what I call the mirror effect. Narcissists are deathly afraid of seeing their true reflection in the eyes of another person. I'm not talking about a literal mirror in the bathroom, I mean a psychological one. They project all of their own flaws onto you just to avoid facing them in themselves. If they are greedy, they'll call you materialistic. If they are liars, they'll obsessively check your phone and accuse you of lying. But what happens when you take that metaphorical mirror and turn it back on them? When you calmly present the facts and show them their actual behavior, they explode. They simply cannot handle the sight of their true selves. This triggers what's known as a narcissistic injury. Instead of reflecting on their actions, they fly into an uncontrollable rage, unleashing a barrage of insults. They will do everything in their power to shatter that mirror, and the person holding it. This is exactly why it's impossible to have a constructive conversation with a narcissist. You try to address a problem with logic and facts, but you're met with a tantrum and constant blame shifting. They fear the truth about themselves more than anything else in the world, and they will defend against it using the most toxic means necessary. Pathological envy is a constant companion of narcissism. Narcissists are terrified of anyone who is smarter, more successful, or simply better than they are. In a normal world, someone else's success can be inspiring, but in their world, your success is a personal insult. If someone close to them achieves something great, the narcissist feels like they are losing ground. To them, life is a zero-sum game, a constant competition where there can only be one winner. Think about how they react to your milestones. Maybe you got a promotion, bought a new car, or you're just having a great hair day. Instead of being happy for you, they will find a way to kill the mood. They'll nitpick, downplay your achievement, or start a fight out of thin air on your big day. It's classic behavior. They destroy your joy because they physically cannot stomach your happiness. Your light is blinding to them. It reminds them of their own deep-seated insecurities. They are terrified of being overshadowed. Their ultimate strategy is to blow out your candle, hoping that in the darkness you leave behind, their dim light will finally look like the sun. No one likes being rejected, but for a narcissist, being left behind is nothing short of a total collapse. Their fear of you walking away first forces them into a preemptive strike. If they sense you're finally waking up, packing your things, or just growing distant, they flip a switch and go into full-blown cruelty mode. In psychology, this is called the discard phase. To them, it is vital that they be the one to leave first. It's a survival mechanism for their fragile ego, because if you leave, it means you have power over them, means you rejected them, and that is simply unacceptable. So they'll orchestrate the breakup to ensure it happens on their terms, in the most painful way imaginable. They might vanish without a word, cheat on you openly, or throw you out into the street in the middle of the night. They need to leave you broken, crying, and begging them to come back. To a narcissist, your pain is a trophy, the ultimate proof of their own importance. What they truly fear is you walking away with your head held high, simply shrugging your shoulders. That's why they strike first, to protect their illusion of power from the crushing blow of your indifference. And what about empathy? Spoiler alert, there is none. Narcissists are terrified of true empathy and deep compassion because to them it's a completely foreign language. Imagine being dropped onto a planet where everyone communicates through telepathy, but you lack that ability. You would feel defective, isolated, and afraid. That is exactly how they feel in the world of healthy human emotions. When you are vulnerable, whether you're sharing your pain, grieving a loss, or just venting about a hard day at work, they have no idea how to react. Your vulnerability actually irritates them. They might offer a cold remark, abruptly change the subject, or even get angry at you for ruining their mood with your tears. They even fear your empathy toward them because genuine pity shatters their facade of greatness. They want to inspire awe, admiration, or even fear, but never sympathy. Encountering deep human emotions only highlights their own emotional void. To avoid feeling broken, they simply devalue the concepts of kindness and compassion, labeling sensitive people as weak or losers. If you've ever tried to drag a partner like this to couples therapy, you know what a nightmare it can be. Narcissists are terrified of mental health professionals. For them, walking into a therapist's office is like walking to the gallows. Why? Because a psychologist is trained to see right through the manipulation, the lies, and the hidden agendas. A narcissist knows their usual tricks like blame shifting and gaslighting simply won't work on an expert. They're scared to death of being exposed and forced to face the truth. This is why they'll often flat out refuse therapy, claiming that shrinks are only for crazy people and that they themselves are perfectly fine. If they do agree to go, it's usually just to charm the therapist and win them over, trying to make you look like the sole cause of all their problems. But if the specialist catches on to the act, the narcissist will flee after the very first session, declaring that the therapist is a total amateur or a fraud. The fear of being unmasked by someone competent makes them avoid any professional analysis of their personality at all costs. The breakup is over and you think the nightmare has finally ended. But there's one more challenge waiting for you. A narcissist is terrified of the idea that you could be happy without them. According to their script, after losing someone as divine as them, you're supposed to spend the rest of your life in tears, mourning what you lost. When they see you thriving, succeeding at work, finding real love, or simply smiling again, it is a devastating blow to their ego. Your happiness is proof that they weren't the center of your universe and that they are, in fact, replaceable. To cope with this fear, they'll launch a smear campaign, they'll stalk your socials, harass you from fake accounts, and spread toxic rumors to anyone who will listen. They are desperate to see you failing, and if they can't find proof that your life is falling apart, they'll simply invent it. They might even pop back into your life with a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" just to poke at an old wound and see if you still react. The thought of you being truly healed is their worst nightmare, because your recovery is their final, absolute defeat. Let's take a look beneath the surface. What is it that a narcissist truly fears when they're finally alone in the silence? They fear the void within. While a normal person might enjoy their own company, reading a book, reflecting, or simply resting for a narcissist, silence is deafening. Without an audience to perform for, the mask slips, leaving them face to face with a gaping hole inside. There are no real passions there, no capacity for true love, no solid core. All that exists is a deep, lingering shame and a crushing sense of worthlessness. To avoid falling into this black hole, they are forced to create constant noise. They thrive on adrenaline, drama, conflict, and a revolving door of new partners. If things at home are peaceful, they will manufacture a crisis out of thin air just to feel some kind of intense emotion. They simply cannot exist in stillness. This perpetual chaos and the mistreatment of those closest to them is their way of outrunning their inner demons. They are terrified to stop and look within because they know deep down they won't find anything of value there. Then there's another fear, one that sounds like a paradox, but it's incredibly powerful, the fear of unconditional love. It's hard for us to wrap our heads around, but they truly don't believe anyone could love them just for who they are. In their distorted reality, every relationship is purely transactional. If you do something kind out of the goodness of your heart, they immediately start looking for the catch. They're convinced you're either trying to manipulate them or waiting for a payback. Their psyche simply isn't wired to process true selflessness. That's why your genuine love and care are often met with suspicion or even outright aggression. They will test your limits, humiliate you and push you away, all just to prove their own theory. See, she doesn't love me, she's just after my money or my status. They are terrified of believing in unconditional love because that would mean dropping their guard and actually trusting you. And for them, trust is synonymous with death. So they systematically dismantle the love of those who are truly sincere, preferring shallow, surface-level connections where everything is predictable and, most importantly, under their control. Humor can be a powerful tool in a relationship unless you're dealing with a narcissist. Their ego might look massive, but it's incredibly brittle. They simply cannot handle being the punchline. For them, the fear of looking foolish or being ridiculed isn't just an insecurity, it's a fundamental threat. Notice the double standard. They love mocking others, dropping biting comments, or humiliating you in front of friends while hiding behind the phrase, "It was just a joke." But try to joke back. Try making a light-hearted remark about their new shirt or a minor mistake they made. The reaction will be instant and chilling. You'll see a flash of cold fury. To a narcissist, a joke isn't friendly banter. It's a direct attack on their perceived greatness. A king cannot be a clown. In their mind, the jester's cap is fatal to the godlike image they've built for themselves. That's why living with someone like this feels like walking through a minefield. You're constantly policing your words, careful not to wound their non-existent sense of self-irony. They fear laughter because it strips away the grandiosity that holds their entire world together. Finally, we come to the ultimate fear that every survivor of abuse needs to understand. It is your total, genuine indifference. Not a calculated silence used as a weapon, and not a hidden grudge, but a state of absolute inner calm. In psychology, this is known as the grey rock method. The goal is to become as boring, predictable, and unemotional as a pebble on the ground. When they try to bait you, insult you, or provoke a scene, you give them nothing. You respond with short, neutral phrases, okay? I see. You're right. And the key is that inside, you truly don't feel a thing. You stop seeing them as some powerful demon who destroyed your life. Instead, you see them for what they really are, a petulant, throwing a tantrum child. When a narcissist is met with true indifference, their entire system glazes over. They realize they have lost all power over you. They have nothing left to feed on. Your boundaries are firm and their words no longer carry weight. Your apathy is what dismantles their false self faster than anything else. They fear this more than anything because, without your reaction, they are nothing. And this realization is your greatest strength. It is your path to true freedom. So let's wrap things up. Behind that mask of arrogance, cruelty, and grandiosity, there is always a small, frightened person hiding. A narcissist's biggest fear is having their inner emptiness exposed and losing control over the people they use as a source of energy. They are terrified of your independence, your boundaries, the truth about who they really are, and, most of all, your genuine indifference. Understanding these fears is your ultimate key to freedom. Once you realize that their cruelty stems from sheer panic, not strength, you stop being a victim. You stop taking their words personally, and you begin to see their power for what it really is, an illusion. I truly hope this video helped clear things up and gave you the tools to protect your mental well-being. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs it. It could truly be a lifesaver. And finally, let me know in the comments, which of these fears have you noticed most in your toxic partner's behavior? Let's talk about it. Let's